Welcome, everyone. Happy Friday. 'Tis the season for lots of stress, over consumption of lots of different types of foods, maybe even alcohol, dealing with a lot of emotional anxiety, possibly for some people during this holiday season. But also, too, this is the time of year where I hear so many people talk about how there's viruses, there's bacteria, it's flu season, it's cold season, and we have to start wondering why, right? And look at how can we better support ourselves. So who here, give me like a thumbs up, let me know, drop a comment in the comment section if you agree with me that this is the time of year that creates a lot of stress for you, or the time of year that you might eat different or be out of your routine a little bit. Because I promise you are not alone in this, and this is something that I personally deal with too. But don't worry, today on this week's Coffee Talk with the Doc, we're gonna be talking about a lot of different ways to help support yourself, to create resilience, because just because someone labels it as cold and flu season, a stressful time of year, doesn't mean that you have to get sick. And here's the thing, yes, I'm a holistic integrative veterinarian. That's who I am, Dr. Katie Woodley, founder of The Natural Pet Doctor. Welcome if you're new. Welcome back if you're returning. The big thing here that I teach my clients, that I practice for myself really, is how do we create this strong ecosystem? Because you cannot pour from an empty cup if you're sick all the time, you have no energy, you don't feel good. And why can I say that? Because I found this path and went on this journey over a decade ago because of my journey with my amazing husband who has so much energy now and feels really good from autoimmune disease. And the story that we were told that we had to live was, "This will be a lifelong problem. You won't feel your best, and you're gonna have to be on a lot of drugs, and they usually don't work very well." And we didn't subscribe to that story, and here we are today. So I wanna make sure you have the tips and tools, and what we're gonna do is I'm breaking this into a two-part series. So if you're not already following us on YouTube, you're not already on the newsletter, make sure you go down below, hit subscribe because next week, I'm gonna go more in depth with the supplements and the brands that we use. Last week, we talked all about supplements and things that you need to be aware of. So we're gonna go deeper into that level of what you can use to support yourself, your immune system, for you and for your pets next week. This week is very important, though, so I don't want you leaving because these are the key foundations to making sure that you stay strong and healthy and don't get sick this holiday season. Can I get a yes on that? Drop that in the comment, which is really, really important so other people see that you're not alone if you're feeling that way. If you're worried about the holidays, the new year, and you're like, wow, I fell off the rails. It's okay. It is 100% okay because your bodies are so resilient and strong when we get back on track. So I wanted to talk about some of the things that come up that people tend to not think about when we're in this holiday season of stress, foods we don't normally eat. Alcohol can be a big immune suppressant and lead to us feeling not energetic, hungover. All those things are very, very common. And we need to look at, okay, well, why does that happen? And gut health is a huge factor in this. And there's a lot of things we've talked about in previous videos. We have a free Better Gut Health masterclass that you can also check out too. But this is where your gut health and your microbiome are going to be a factor in whether or not you're resilient to the external factors of things like viruses, the cold, bacteria, and even stress. So the key here is thinking about them in 5 different pillars or foundations. We have our gut health and nutrition, we have our physical health, we have our immune health, which is what we're talking about, of course, your emotional health, and the environmental health. Now, these pillars sound very simple, but they are commonly forgot about or missed, and they are all interconnected. This is why we need to bring us back down so we don't miss the forest or the trees by just looking at one thing and thinking about what do I need to give, right? I don't want you just thinking about supplements. I want you to be thinking about your ecosystem because this is how you create strength and resiliency. The same principles apply for your pet so you can be strong and healthy and energetic, right? Who's all for that? I'm all for that entering the new year. So when we think about, okay, let's talk about physical health. One of the things, especially if you live in a cold area, I see Nosley here. Good morning. I'm going to pick on Nosley because I love her and I know her and work with her personally. If it's like -50 with where you live, you're probably not gonna go for as many walks as possible, or exercise as much, or get outside because of those temperatures and those conditions. This is where I live in Colorado. Some days it's really cold, and there's a risk of frostbite for us and for our pets. But I want you to think about how can we get creative? Because physical health and movement is really important for your mental health. So think about, okay, in a couple weeks, we've got, the holidays, Christmas, if you're celebrating, Hanukkah, time with family, and it's not always positive, right? There's, like, politics and all sorts of craziness, and you're like, "I don't care about watching sports, but that's what my family does." And it can be really, really stressful. I know personally from my personal experience, when I move, when I exercise in the morning, before those events happen that I know may induce a little more stress or anxiety, I can tolerate it much better. So what are some of the things that you can do from your physical health bucket? I want you to drop it down below in the comments. What do you do to help with the movement, especially if you're like, "I can't go outside because I'm literally gonna lose all my fingers and my limbs because of how cold it is." It can be that is a reality for so many pet parents here and for yourself. So, what are some of the tools you use? This is where I love moving, walking. I have a treadmill, and I know not everyone can have a treadmill in their house, but can you pop a video in? This is where there's so many free YouTube videos on yoga, stretching, jumping jacks, doing your high intensity workouts, your workout of the day. There's so many great free resources where you can just move and get your body going and stretch. Even meditation can help to ground that busy mind of ours. These all come into the physical health and also tap into that emotional health foundation. But also too, the physical health side is really important because movement is gonna help optimize what we call our lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system is key to helping us detox. So I said everything would be interconnected, right? And when we think about our lymphatic system and detoxification, the only way we get that lymph fluid moving is by moving our muscles and walking and stretching, and all of those activities are really important. So this is where if we're not moving, things become stagnant. Toxins can build up. When we have more toxins, we have more inflammation in the body that can then affect our emotional health and our brain health, creating brain on fire, and we don't feel good. We have less energy, we're more reactive, and you can't deal with Uncle Bob at the holiday table saying his silly jokes, and you're like, "We're making fun of you, right?" We've all been there. And so we need you to be as resilient and strong as possible to handle these situations, but also to, at the bigger scheme of things, be able to take care of yourself and your pet. And so keeping in mind that physical health. So if there's 1 or 2 things that you can do during this season, during this winter time to get yourself moving and exercising, really, really critical. Yes, mama bear, I lift weights. NPIC, time to dust off the treadmill, right? If you can't get outside, if you have those tools, utilize them. Now, the big thing is definitely utilize there's free resources, but put time in. Even 5 to 10 minutes is really, really key here, and it will fill your cup so you're less reactive, less anxious, and it supports your detox so we're not getting inflamed and shutting down those other systems. So physical health is really, really key when we're thinking about how do we support and boost and create a strong immune system. Now, the second pillar of health is your gut health and nutrition. Now, I am not here to say, don't eat those foods that you know you shouldn't be eating. Here's the thing, I believe in what we do the majority of the time is how we set ourselves up for success. And I practice this myself. And if I want to eat a piece of cake, fantastic. I love pumpkin pie. I love hot chocolate. I love sweet things. But I also balance it with other things, and it's not something I take in every single day. So if I know that, say, for me, we celebrate Christmas, I know there's gonna be a lot of foods that aren't my normal diet, and there's things that I can do to protect my gut health, protect my microbiome, support my gallbladder, bile production, support detoxification, so that I don't feel like trash the next morning when I wake up. This is key. The other big thing too is we take in a lot of sugar this time of year. Sugar, so carbs turn into sugar. Hey, that sounds like processed pet food and kibble. Turns into sugar. What does sugar do? Sugar literally uses up all the B vitamins, it uses up phosphorus, it's going to impact those gut microbiome, it's going to increase inflammation, it's gonna make it harder to detoxify. So when we know how the things work in the body, when we take them in, yes, wine is sugar. I like wine, I'm not gonna lie, I love a good glass of red wine, it's amazing when it's cold outside, mulled wine's amazing, but when I understand, like, this is a lot of sugar, I can supplement my diet with supplements, nutrition, different types of food to make sure that I'm building back up the cup, right? We're refilling my cup that I'm pouring from. So these are things like we'll talk more about different brands and supplements that I use, but B vitamins are really, really important. This is especially if you're gonna take in imbibe in alcohol and things like that. That just takes away all your B vitamins. The other thing too is that we know for taking in a lot of rich food, we need help breaking that down. This is where digestive enzymes and making sure that we're producing enough hydrochloric acid in our stomach to break down those animal proteins, because a lot of times for a lot of people here, I know with my clients and my Blueprint members that as we age, we decrease our digestive enzymes and our ability to break down the foods. What that can show up as a symptom for you, you could be gassy. Who here gets gassy after eating some of these, like, holiday meals? Gassiness, not feeling good, low energy, breakouts on your face, right? So that's a manifestation usually of, like, gut health. Also diarrhea, loose stool, like, you don't feel good. Headaches are also another big cause. We're gonna talk about next week the supplements you can actually use to help. I don't want you having hangovers, and I'm not here to say never take a part of these things. We need to use them in appropriate manners if you are going to take in different types of foods that you're not used to that are more processed. Now, once again, 90% use good foods and nutrition. And this goes for our animals too, where they can get little bits of other tasty treats and snacks. But what are we feeding them the majority of the time? So think about, okay, we know that the gut health is really important. We have the microbiome. These are trillions of different types of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, yeast that should all be working together. Protozoa are part of that. This is really, really important when we think about we need to feed the good bacteria. We also need to create the proper ecosystem so those bacteria, the good bacteria, thrive. And this also comes down to the stomach acid. And are we breaking down the food properly? This applies to you, it applies to your pets. So, using some of these supplements to help us break down our food that then passes into the small intestine and the large intestine and supporting bile. Certain whole fresh foods, because I'm not gonna talk about supplements today, I'm gonna talk about those next week, are gonna be things like beetroots are really, really helpful for thinning the bile. Bile's really important for the metabolism of fats, and a lot of people have stagnant bile. It's too thick, it's not doing what it's supposed to. It's getting stuck in the gallbladder. This is where mucus seals are a huge problem for a lot of pets and even people, like and then what happens? You get your gallbladder removed, like, not ideal. We don't want that to happen. So we can actually use amazing fresh foods to help support for the medicinal properties that we want to make sure everything is working well together. So beetroots are really, really helpful for thinning that bile to process the extra fat that you're probably taking in. The other things that we wanna look at are making sure you're getting some bitters into your diet. These are gonna be things like your leafy greens. When you think about eating, like, arugula, really good, healthy arugula is very bitter tasting, and those bitter compounds are actually helping with digestion, and they're supporting the liver and the gallbladder. So that way, we're less likely to have GI upset, that gassiness, and we're also feeding the microbiome. This is where also I love adding in medicinal mushrooms too. They are very good at supporting the immune system, supporting detoxification. They are a prebiotic, so they're a food source for the beneficial bacteria. Remember, these are live microorganisms that we have to feed. So looking at the foods that we're taking in before we get to our places we're going to eat all the food and take in potentially alcohol are really, really key. And the other thing too is when you're taking in these healthy foods, this is where you're not as hungry. So you're less likely to take in more of the foods that you're like, "Oh, I feel a little guilty." Once again, I'm giving you permission, it's okay. This is like your 10%. It's okay as long as the 90% we're doing as best as we can with the healthy foods and healthy lifestyle. So think about the foods you're eating before to build up the resilience for potentially being knocked down a little bit with some of the foods and drinks that you're gonna be taking in, which is really, really important. And then looking at stress management. So once again, all these factors, this is like your emotional health. What are the things that we can do to help? Now, stress is normal. It's common. Every single person will experience that. But how are you supporting yourself to help with that? So this is where looking at extrinsic factors and intrinsic factors. And this is where too, a lot of the things that I do personally, I read a lot of like personal development. I practice a lot of gratitude and writing down every morning what I'm grateful for because it helps my mind shift to this seeing the positive things and reflecting on all the things that I'm grateful for, even if times are really, really tough. It doesn't necessarily diminish the tough times you're going through because we're all going through different things. But once again, if we know Uncle Bob's gonna be there and he likes poking the bear with the stick to try to get a reaction, if we can ground ourselves before these events by doing the physical health, getting some movement in, we're eating some foods to support our system so we feel better and have more energy, we're more resilient, and then we're grounding ourselves in gratitude to support our emotional health. This is also where meditation can help, and it doesn't need to be an hour-long meditation. I will be fully transparent, I am not the person to do hour-long meditations. My mind is crazy, and I know people here will be like, "Well, that's exactly why you need that, Dr. Katie," and I get it. I love movement and other activities, and it's okay. So we have to find the things that work for ourselves and grounding myself in gratitude and writing it down. Even if you're having a really difficult time, you're going through a lot, it seems like the world is crumbling around you. Looking outside, this is why I love having a window right here. I can look outside and I can see the beautiful sunrise. Right now, we have like this glistening like frost. It's beautiful. The sun's coming up. I'm super grateful that I can see that outside my window. I'm grateful that I'm safe. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my cute little fluffy kitten right here on his little bed on my desk. Can't show you because I'm not gonna move him and disturb him, but simple things that we can be grateful for will help ground you and also help your brain to see the things that are positive versus focusing on all the negative things around us. One of the things that's helped me greatly in my experience that may be helpful for you also for my own emotional health, because I work with a lot of really sick pets, and I see a lot of the struggles that you go through as a pet parent, and it can be really disheartening and saddening. However, one of the things that I've gotten rid of for the past probably 7 years or so now is watching the morning news and watching news in the evening. I'm not saying I don't watch what's going on, but I don't wanna see all the shootings. I don't wanna see all the really sad, horrible things that I can't necessarily control or do anything in that moment for. Now, there's things we can do, right, to help the people in need and support those organizations that are able to go in and provide support for all the crazy stuff that's happening in this world. But what I found personally is that it helps me be less reactive and helps me to focus on the things that I can do and support and how I can help amazing pet parents like yourselves and come with a place full of love and strength and resilience. And I love that, Amy. My focus is always learning new ways to support my dog's health. I love reading and educating myself so I can share those new things for you to help you or that can potentially help you. So that emotional health side is really, really important because there's so many extrinsic. Now think about intrinsic as these things, these pillars of health that we can do these little things to help build up. But there's this entire world outside of us that's extrinsic. And I can't control what my neighbors do. I can't control how people react to me on YouTube. I can control how I show up for you, who I am as a person, how I wanna support pet parents, how I wanna support my husband as a wife, how I wanna support my pets. That is intrinsic, and that's where I tap into that value system and the tools that work for me that help me feel good or as best as possible, even on hard days. I have freaking hard days, I'm not gonna lie. There are days sometimes where I'm like, "I just don't wanna get out of bed today." Does anyone else resonate with that? Where you're like, "I just don't wanna do it. Can I just, like, tap out today? Like, maybe just this week or this month?" But then by grounding into these exercises and routines, this is what helps me get out of bed and maintain the passion for what's most important to me. So keep that in mind if you're going through like, you have to go to a family event and you're like, "These aren't my people, but I feel like I have to do this." And there's gonna be people, like, reacting or trying to trigger you or do things. Tap yourself back into that gratitude, like, "You know, I'm so grateful I don't have to live with them." Like, this is, like, a couple hours of my life, and I can go back to my pets, and I can have my fluffy kitten sit on my lap, and I can de-stress and defrag and be okay. So this is where that is personally how I shift if I do have to go into a setting, because we do have to experience these things. This is part of life. But tapping into those foundations, creating routines for yourself, and building up those resources is really important. Now, the other piece to this too is environmental health. We take in a lot of toxins during this time of year, and like I said, I don't want you to feel guilty. I want you to be aware of, "Okay, I'm gonna have a couple glasses of wine tonight maybe. What can I do to support getting those toxins out so I don't feel like trash in the morning?" Comes down to the foods that we're thinking about eating that day. How can we support those detox pathways with certain types of foods, and supplements I'm gonna lay out and do some presentation like a presentation so you can actually see the ones that I'm talking about and what's in them so that way you have a better understanding next week. So next Friday, the coffee talk with the doc, make sure you hit that subscribe, follow us, or get on our newsletter at thenaturalpetdoctor.com so you can join me live here again at 9 a.m. So this is really, really important. So your detox pathways get kind of clogged up at this time of year. And this is why so many people end up getting reactive or you feel worse with things like arthritis. Yeah, it can be cold, but a lot of times it can actually be due to clogged up detox pathways. So this is where using things like milk thistle, burdock root, dandelion, my teas are like my go-to because we can tap into the power of herbs to really help open up those pathways and support our systems. And there's just something so calming about just drinking a cup of warm tea, especially when you're in a cold environment, that comes down to the energetics of those herbs. Does anyone else here just love tea? I know I love tea. I love using teas for our pets. This is also where too for your pets, like chamomile is one of my favorites just because we deal with so much stress, and our pets have a lot of stress and anxiety too, potentially. And using tea, I always say brew a cup of tea for yourself and pour a little bit into your pet's food. And this is where chamomile is really helpful for supporting gut health, supporting calming down the sympathetic nervous system, that overdrive, and also too, it's anti-inflammatory. This is why we feel better. It helps calm my, like, crazy mind that has all these ideas and doesn't turn off, especially at night before I go to bed. So this is part of that nightly routine. But you can also take in burdock root tea, dandelion tea to help with detoxification. There's different phases of detox. This is something that I teach in my Blueprint program, and a lot of things that people miss are these different phases of detoxification and how to optimize them. A lot of people are using milk thistle, but I found that toxins end up getting stuck because the elimination path is is not working well. If you're prone to constipation, I know, talking about poop on a Friday morning, right? If you're prone to constipation, your elimination pathway is not working well. And what will happen is that as the toxins should be getting out, they're not moving quickly out of the body. It gets recirculated through a process called enterohepatic recirculation. It brings it right back into the liver. And if phase 1 and phase 2 of those detox pathways don't have the right vitamins, minerals, nutrients, it's not gonna get processed into a water-soluble toxin, and it can get restored back in the fat tissues. Hello, lipomas, toxins. Hello, not feeling good, pain, headaches, things like that can be a sign that we are storing and recirculating toxins. So this is something where focusing on how do we use these teas, how do we use fresh whole foods, making sure that we're taking in certain vitamins and minerals, those B vitamins are really important. They're also part of the phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification, and we need to be supporting all these areas of health in order to boost and support a strong immune system. So going back to those 5 pillars once again, your physical health, your gut health, nutrition, your emotional health, your environmental health, and that last one is your immune health. And I left it for last because I wanted you to see it's not just, "Oh, give echinacea," but we're trashing the rest of those foundations. Because when we focus on one tiny thing or one pillar, we end up missing the forest for the trees. So it's really important to ground ourselves and take that step back and think about, "Huh, I can improve that. Fantastic. Now I know so I can do better. Hey, I add one thing in each day, and I make that a habit to help create more resilience." And when you strengthen those other parts of these other foundations, your immune system is 100% much stronger for you, and these principles also apply for your pets. So this is really, really key. It's when we miss these foundations that everything starts crumbling, and then you start grabbing different supplements, and you're like, "Why is my pet not getting better? Why am I not getting better? Why am I going around the merry-go-round myself?" And you end up with a supplement graveyard, where you end up trying all these different diets for your pet, and you end up spending and wasting a lot of money. I've been there. I can understand, and I learn a lot too, just like so many of you here watching, right? Drop a comment if I'm speaking to you. Like, if you are like, "I research so much, I hear about this would work for myself, this would work for my pet," you end up buying it, then you try it and you're like, "It's not working the way I thought it would." It's because we've missed some part of those foundations and something is weak and we need to strengthen it. The other thing too to keep in mind, especially this time of year, is that I am all about integrating conventional, so your Western medicine with Eastern. I truly believe an integrative approach is the best approach to optimizing health. I'm not against drugs. And I believe in I believe in appropriately using vaccines with when and if they're needed. There are pros and cons to everything, and most people don't look at the benefit to risk ratio. This is really important. This time of year, that's all thrown out the window because there's fear, marketing around bacteria and viruses, and it goes back to germ theory versus terrain theory. So extrinsic issues like viruses and colds, and I want you to think about, for example, think about yourself over the past few years, right? We've had quite the thing happen. You've been in a situation, let's say, so a wedding, and after the wedding, like a week later, you're like, you hear about everyone like got sick, right? Whether from whatever it is, I don't need to speak any everyone knows what I'm talking about, right? So, certain viruses or just colds or flus or whatever, or flying. Any situation where you're around a lot of people, but it's nice to know, like, a lot of people, like or some people got really sick afterwards, and you're like, "Oh, it must have been that virus, right? Well, why didn't I get sick? Or why didn't my friend get sick?" Or and you're like, "Huh, that doesn't make any sense." That is the problem with germ theory, is that an infectious organism doesn't have to make you sick. Now, it can make you sick, and a sign of a good immune system and healthy foundations, like we just talked about, what's gonna happen if you do get sick, you bounce back and recover much quicker. That is a sign of a healthy immune system. This does not mean you will never get sick. This does not mean your pets will never get sick. How quickly do you recover is key. That is really, really important, and this is exactly why terrain theory, which looks at the entire ecosystem, the intrinsic factors of those foundations, those pillars of health, are so important to how you respond when you come across a germ. It's why we don't need to sterilize our environment. Yes, use safe hygienic practices, but exactly, it's a theory. We don't know anything, and the more we know, the less we know. Every day I'm like, "Wow, I was wrong on that," once I learn more and more, and I will continue to learn more, and I will continue to look back and reflect and go, "Hey, I thought that was right at that time, and it's not." Germ theory is a theory, and it is being shown that it's not a correct theory, and we need to look at our ecosystem, and I can tell you 100%, I feel so much more empowered and confident in my abilities to protect myself when I take care of myself. And it's shown through these past few years where I travel a lot and I don't get sick very often. And when I do get sick, I reflect back and I think about, okay, what was off? Oh, I was really tired. I was working too much. I didn't do the things that I mentioned that I need to do to build a healthy, resilient, strong immune system. And that's why it took me longer to recover. So when we know and better understand how all these factors work together, we can then create the strength and a strong immune system. So once again, really, really important to look at these things and nay on hand sanitizer. That's a great question. I don't use hand sanitizer unless I had to or was doing like when I worked in the conventional clinic, of course, this is where washing my hands is very important, right? Surgical practices, yes, there's a time and a place, but I'm not one to use hand sanitizers. I can't wash my hands, say, like on a plane. There may be a time and a place, right? This is where looking at, okay, what do I need to do in this situation? But I got through the pandemic not dousing myself in bleach and hand sanitizers. And because I followed these principles. That's really, really important, and they will look different. The foundations are the same, but this is where empowering yourself to be able to assess your situation and what you need in that situation is key by understanding how all these things work together. Really, really important. So once again, if you're like, "I don't know, I'm not sure," there is in the description, if you're on YouTube, some of the supplements I recommend through our full script you can look at them even if you can't access them if you're out of the country, still look at them to look at the brands and things like that. Next week on our Coffee Talk with the Doc on Friday at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, I will be going through a presentation with some of these supplements and how they support those 5 foundations with physical health and that lymphatic system, how we support the gut health, how we support immune health, how we support emotional health, and how we support environmental health with my top ones, not all the things, because you don't need a supplement graveyard anymore. We wanna be using the things that make the most sense for a specific situation without overdoing supplements. And I want you to ground yourself in more of the free things that we can do to support a strong, resilient immune system with fresh food, supporting detox with amazing herbs and teas. And then we add on the supplements to fill in the gaps. So keep that in mind. Let me know if you're going to join me next Friday. If you have questions about this, please drop them in the chat box. I go through them personally, and I would super happy to share some resources that may be beneficial to help guide you so you can have the strongest, healthiest, most energizing wintertime holiday season yet. So I hope you found this helpful. If you found something helpful or something you're using that's helped you, drop it in the comments so that way you can help others who are just like you trying to figure it out, learn more, do more, just be amazing humans to support ourselves and support our pets so that we can all thrive naturally. I'm Dr. Katie Woodley, the natural pet doctor. I will see you all again next Friday for our next coffee talk with a doc. Take care.